Hello, my name is Taya Graham, and welcome to the Police Accountability Report. As I always make clear, this show has a single purpose, holding the politically powerful institution of policing accountable. And to do so, we don't just focus on the bad behavior of individual cops. Instead, we examine the system that makes bad policing possible. And to do so today, we're going to focus on the arrest of a viewer who sent us this video that is so disturbing, we felt like we had to devote an entire show to it. But before we get started, I want you watching to know that if you have evidence of police misconduct, please email it to us privately at par@therealnews.com, and we might be able to investigate for you. And of course, you can always message me directly at Tayas Baltimore on Facebook or Twitter. And please like, share, and comment on our videos. It really does help us, and you know I read your comments. And if you can, hit our Patreon donate link pinned in the comments below, because we do have some special goodies for our Patreon family. Okay, now that's out of the way. Now, as you know, on this show, we encourage people to share their stories of police misconduct. The idea is that if we do thorough and detailed reporting on stories for them, then perhaps we can hold some bad cops accountable in the process. That's why when we received this video, we paid attention and decided to focus our efforts on it. As you can see here, it's the video of a car stop of a Los Angeles resident, Daniel Alvarez, in January of 2020. He had just pulled out of his own driveway when a Los Angeles sheriff pulled him over and began questioning him. Let's listen and watch.
No, you didn't. What are you stopping me for?
You're more than welcome to record.
You seen me at my house, get in the car, and then you turn around and chase me down. I didn't break any laws.
Okay, but I'm telling you, you did. If I want to write you a ticket for that, and
I didn't stop over nothing. Okay. I stopped at the stop sign, turned left.
You have ID?
Yeah, I have an ID.
Okay, where's your ID?
For what? What are you stopping me for?
I'm stopping you for...
No, you're stopping me because you seen what I look like.
Alright, don't reach for anything.
You want my ID, right?
But did I tell you to reach for it?
You want my ID? That's what you're asking for, right?
So now
you can put your gun away.
Okay, sit on the vehicle.
That's annoying.
You're stopping me because you want to see what I look like. Be a man and say what you're stopping me for then. Don't be petty. No, I didn't break no law.
And everything. Alright.
Now, as you can hear, the officer claims Daniel rolled past a line that preceded a stop sign. Okay. Not that he ran the stop sign, mind you, but simply that he didn't stop far enough ahead of the sign. Then, as Daniel reaches for his wallet at the request of the officer, something occurs off camera that is not just alarming, but terrifying. I'll let Daniel explain as we watch the video.
Stopped at the stop sign, turned left.
You have ID?
Yeah, I have an ID.
Okay, where's your ID?
For what? What are you stopping me for?
I'm stopping you for...
No, you're stopping me because you seen what I look like.
Alright, don't reach for anything.
You want my ID, right?
But did I tell you to reach for it?
You want my ID? That's what you're asking for, right?
So now
you can put your gun away.
Okay, sit on the vehicle.
That's annoying.
You're stopping me because you want to see what I look like. Be a man and say what you're stopping me for then. Don't be petty. No, I didn't break no law.
And everything. Alright.
Now, besides the fact that the officer clearly did not have probable cause to stop Daniel, the officer placed him in handcuffs. The officer then escorts him to the side of the vehicle where, if you listen closely, he makes remarks that clearly prove that Daniel is profiled. Let's listen, and as we do, we'll let Daniel tell us the rest.
He drove by my house and he seen me taking some stuff out of my car. I was getting ready to go eat, and he kind of pulled up and started throwing his head up and his hands up at me. And I kind of just didn't really acknowledge him because I thought, well, that's kind of unprofessional, you know, and I kind of shook my head and kept doing what I was doing. And then about 10 minutes later, I left and he was waiting for me at the corner.
No, you're stopping me because you seen what I look like.
Alright, don't reach for anything.
You want my ID, right?
But did I tell you?
He asked me for my ID, and then so when I went to get my ID, he instantly pulled his gun out. He was a little bit out of view and he pointed it right at my face. That's why I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute. I just thought it was a little bit, you know, overkill for running or supposedly running a stop sign.
First you drive by and try to throw your head up at me.
Put your hands together.
My hands are
so
together.
I can't say hi now?
But the police are not done yet. As you can see in this video, as they are busy trying to conjure up a reason to arrest Daniel, they decide then to detain and charge his passenger. Let's watch, and as we do, let Daniel tell us what happened and why.
Off the phone.
I'm talking to his mom.
Okay, off the phone.
This is ridiculous.
Okay, here.
What? Why do I have to get...
You can
no,
put the
you
phone.
have
I'm
to
not
get
stopping
my
you
phone.
recording or anything. I do, alright?
We didn't even do
right,
anything.
step
What
on
is
the
this
vehicle.
for?
Because you're his attitude. Don't reach for anything.
So what? I'm fucking... This is... God, what the fuck are you doing?
I said don't reach for anything.
Oh my god, I'm closing my fucking fucking purse?
We're okay. What
What the fuck is all this? Oh my god,
I told you not to reach for anything.
Purse.
I told you
You
not
guys
to
are
reach for anything.
ridiculous.
What'd I say?
You're over exaggerating.
Okay, now you're gonna go to prison for.
And I think when he walked up and seen her recording, right away it irritated him because he was like, "Oh, you can record," but he really was irritated that she was recording. And then they ended up yanking her out of the car and slamming her on the ground and saying that she was I forget the word that they used, but that she was basically obstructing his stop. But they didn't know that when they took her out of the car that the phone was still filming. And so they made a couple comments. If you turn the volume up and listen real close, you can hear what they said. And then they shut the phone off.
That guy.
Now, before we talk to Daniel, not just about this encounter and what happened afterwards, I'm joined by my reporting partner, Stephen Janis, who has been following up on the story. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Stephen, first, what questions did you have for the sheriff?
Well, I asked a series of questions. Number one, use of force. The officer drew his weapon. That's a use of force. Did he file a report? And does that jibe with the policies? I also talked about probable cause. Is it okay for him to profile people or to just stop people randomly for the way they look? And then I also asked him about some of the circumstances surrounding the stop itself and also the passenger. What happened to the passenger? Why was the passenger arrested? All these questions I outlined in an email that I sent to the LA County Sheriff, and I was awaiting an answer.
So they sent you on kind of a wild goose chase. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I sent this to the PIO, which, let me say right now, the Sheriff's Department in LA has like dozens of PIOs. Look at their website. I sent it to the PIO for a response from the Sheriff's Department. They sent us to the watch captain of the Lancaster department where this sheriff actually works, who could not answer our questions, was completely flummoxed. So instead of all these people that they're paying millions of dollars to answer questions from the press, they sent us on a wild goose chase.
Now, we have talked about the theory that police fabricate order, but as you've also noticed, in cases like this, it appears police fabricate disorder. Can you talk about how this applies in this case?
I think when you look at these kind of cases, it's purely about causing chaos in people's lives. There's no obvious law enforcement objective or goal. You're not preventing crime. You're trying to make people insecure in their place. You're probably make people insecure in their cars and insecure in their person. That's what this is about, sowing disorder. That's it.
And now, to discuss what happened after his encounter with the cops and how their continued harassment has affected his life, I'm joined by Daniel Alvarez. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So first, tell us how this began. When did the officer approach you?
He drove by my house and he seen me taking some stuff out of my car. I was getting ready to go eat, and he kind of pulled up and started throwing his head up and his hands up at me. And I kind of just didn't really acknowledge him because I thought, well, that's kind of unprofessional, and I kind of shook my head and kept doing what I was doing. And then about 10 minutes later, I left and he was waiting for me at the corner.
So what did the officer say that made you question the legality of this stop?
I asked him what he stopped me for, and he said I ran a stop sign. But on that street, there is no stop sign. That's why I laughed and said, there's no way that I could have ran a stop sign. And then I got a little bit irritated. So I asked him, I told him, you pulled me over because you seen what I looked like when you drove by my house and threw your head up at me. And he said, yeah, I just said hi. But he asked me for my ID. And then so when I went to get my ID, he instantly pulled his gun out. He was a little bit out of view and he pointed it right at my face. That's why I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute. I just thought it was a little bit, overkill for supposedly running a stop sign.
Do you feel like you were being profiled?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what happened to the woman sitting next to you?
So I think I knew it was actually like her birthday and we were going to eat. And I had told her in the car, I said, I think he's waiting down the street, but I wasn't doing anything wrong. So I told her if he does happen to pull us over, just record him so that we're all accountable and safe. So as soon as we hit the corner, I seen him and then she was already turning her phone on. And I think when he walked up and seen her recording, right away it irritated him because he was like, oh, you can record, but he really was irritated that she was recording. And then they ended up yanking her out of the car and slamming her on the ground and saying that she was, I forget the word that they used, but that she was basically obstructing his stop. But they didn't know that when they took her out of the car that the phone was still filming. And so they made a couple comments. If you turn the volume up and listen real close, you can hear what they said. and then they shut the phone off. I think he was mocking me because when he took me out of the car, he said, "Are you on probation? You're on parole, guns, drugs, anything?" And I told him, "No, I'm just a law-abiding citizen. I ain't doing nothing, you know." And he was mocking me to the other cop. This fucking law-abiding citizen. And then I think they realized that the phone was on and they shut the phone off.
Law-abiding citizens.
That guy.
They told me that they wouldn't take me to jail if I gave them access to her phone and let them record delete the video. And then they brought the sergeant, and the sergeant started filming me. And then he said, "I'm going to film you for, whatever investigation." I said, "That's fine." And then he said, "Will you let us get into her phone and erase the video? We'll let you go." And I told him, I don't have the password to her phone. I don't have any access to her phone. It's not my phone. And she wasn't going to give it to them because she was already mad that they were taking her to jail. So the whole time at the substation, everything, they were telling her, give us the password to your phone. We'll let you go. But we just kept saying we didn't know it.
Have you filed a complaint against the officer? And what have you found out about him?
So I did file a complaint because just how fast he went from, but it kind of, my true thoughts were when he drove by my house and he seen me, he stopped, and I like perceived him as a gang member. The way he stopped, the way he was like throwing his head up, throwing his hands up. And I thought, well, that's usually like what, it's what gang members usually do to each other. So I thought, I shook my head, and I think that really made him mad when I shook my head. But I was like, this is really unprofessional for a cop. But I just shook my head and I was like, I'm going to go about my business. But I think that is what really made him mad, that I didn't engage in any of his. So I did. I went to the commissioner and I filed a report to the commissioner because I didn't feel like if I went to the sheriff's station, they would just, they won't do anything about it. So I filed a complaint with the commissioner and I gave him the video. And then the lieutenant contacted me and asked me if he could basically see the video. And I told him, yeah, you can see it. The commissioner has it. Don't contact me. Contact the commissioner. They'll give you everything that you need. But I just felt like how fast he went from me supposedly running a stop sign that didn't exist to him pulling a gun on me and then taking me out of the car, searching my car. I know that he knew because he even said afterwards when they let me go, he said, I was 100% sure that you had a gun or dope in the car. And I asked him why. And he said, because of the way that you look. And I told him, you're crazy. So I know what he was doing. He knew what he was doing too, but he just, I don't live like that. So he didn't find what he thought he was going to find.
Are you concerned about retaliation from this officer? And have you continued to be harassed in any way by police?
Probably like within 3 days, they started going by my house a lot. And then I was pulled over like 3 days later. And then the cop said, well, I'll take you to jail for assault on an officer. And I was like, haven't even moved out of my car. And I knew then, like, okay, now they're really harassing me. So I just said, okay, whatever you guys want to do, you win. I'm not doing anything. Luckily, there was a bunch of people in the gas station that were like watching. And so they were kind of a little bit trying to like, intimidate me, but they were kind of knew that a lot of people were watching. And then about a month later, I was at my mom's work and they know my car. So they seen me, they all pulled to the side. I seen them lined up and I thought, that's weird. There's a lot of them. What are they doing? And I told my mom, okay, I love you. I'm going to go home. I'll see you later. And I left her work. And as soon as I left her work, a bunch of them pulled in behind me. They pulled me over. So my mom had seen, so she came out there and started filming. And then she called my sister. And then they said, we know that you're drunk. And I was like, I don't even drink or, nothing. So I did like 10 field sobriety tests for them, probably for like about an hour and a half. And then I kept passing every single one. Finally, I said, I want you guys as lieutenant here because at the first stop, there was like about 12 of them that showed up. And then at this stop, they were all the same guys except for the cop that initiated it. And I told them, you guys are only doing this because I made a complaint on your partner. And they were like, we don't care. We're taking you to jail. We're going to impound your car. We're going to do this every single time we see you. So I said, okay, that's fine. Impound it, take me to jail, and I'll bail myself out because I'm not doing anything wrong. So my sister and my mom like tried to sneakily film them. And then basically after like the 12th field sobriety test, they said, okay, we're taking you to jail. And then I said, okay. And then on the way to jail, I told them, so what is this now? And he said, we're just going to take you to jail, charge you with the DUI. And I told him, no way, I want my blood taken. You need to take my blood because now you're just trying to take me to jail saying that I'm under the influence. So then they started talking, and I said, I want my blood taken. So then finally I made a big enough deal about it that they took me to the hospital, had my blood taken, and then took me to jail. And I asked the sergeant and the cop that arrested me, I said, do you guys think that I'm under the influence? And they said, no, we don't think you're under the influence, but you pissed somebody off. And I said, so then what kind of sergeant are you if you're going along with it? And he was like, well, you're going to jail. And I was like, oh, okay. As long as we're both aware of why you're doing it. I got a DUI, and then but I wasn't under the influence of anything. I don't drink, do any drugs. So I had to wait about maybe three months before the because the DMV sent me a bunch of stuff saying that my license was like a restricted license, and then I had to wait for the court. The DA sent me a letter saying, hey, we've got your blood results back. It was negative, so we're not pursuing any charges. So I had to show that letter to the DMV, and then I made a complaint about all of them, that they were all there in the first stop, they were all there in the second stop, and that I told the commissioner what they said in the third stop about not caring that they knew, they didn't care that I had made somebody mad, so I was going to jail for a DUI. And then they sent me a letter about all three of them saying, okay, we reprimanded the sergeant. He should have acted different. But then again, what is a reprimand,
What would you like to see change in the criminal justice system?
I feel like that they shouldn't be able to drive down the street and look and see if you're black or brown, turn around and stop you, search your car. Basically, you have no rights to anything, treat you any way you want, put you in the back of their car for an hour in super tight handcuffs. And when they figure out you're doing nothing, okay, now you can go when we're done with you. But yet they really had no reason to stop you. I believe there should be accountability from higher up on how they're allowed to pull you over. If you're walking down the street and they're driving and they just see you're just Hispanic or black and you're on this street, so I'm going to stop you and search you and hold you for an hour. There was never any crime committed. Nobody ever said you were doing something wrong. We just want to know what you're doing, so we're going to harass you. So I think it from a higher level could be changed.
I think Daniel's predicament evokes a metaphor that might provide some worthwhile context. It's something less tangible than questioning an arrest or tactics or even the behavior of an individual officer. What I'm talking about here is that police don't just limit our rights, like in Daniel's case. In a certain sense, they hoard our freedom. In other words, by constricting our own rights to be free from the unjust constraints and overbearing laws, they accumulate more freedom for themselves. It's like the bubble of injustice that envelops us, liberating them from all the hardships we face living in this winner-take-all capitalism-infused lottery called the American dream. Let's remember, as our past investigations have revealed, lifetime police pensions are far more generous than Social Security and are bankrupting American cities. Police, for example, are usually given lifetime health benefits. And in our own city of Baltimore, perks like take-home cars with free gas so they can commute to and from work are the rule rather than the exception. And then there is the constant stream of propaganda and constant adulation from Hollywood that depicts policing as an epic battle between good and bad and right and wrong. In those tales, the cops are always rendered as complex and nuanced beings. Meanwhile, criminals and the rest of us are simplistic, unworthy, or just plain evil. I think the best way to understand what I'm talking about is to think about the psychology of the arrest we just saw. How police can use even the flimsiest pretext to literally consume our most valuable resource, our freedom. It shows how a cop with the full backing of the government and the media set off a chain of events that conspired to turn a casual drive on a date into forced conscription into the social vacuum of eternal criminality. What do I mean? Well, consider a book Stephen wrote almost a decade ago when he was covering the Baltimore version of this idea. Back in the aughts, the city arrested over 100,000 people a year under the auspices of a policy called zero tolerance. It was an idea that even the pettiest of infractions, like spitting on a sidewalk or drinking a beer on your front porch, warranted jail time. Stephen had written tons of stories about it, but because the people most affected were either poor or black, The problem was basically ignored. We talked a great deal about the way he could convey just how horrible this wielding of police power was for the people subject to it. Eventually, he decided to write a book that used a metaphor to explain not just the concept of incarcerating everyone, but how it affected the community's perception of itself through the psychology of ubiquitous and arbitrary power. The result is a book called This Dream Called Death. In it, Stephen explores a fictional city called Belize and the efforts of city leaders to crack down on the citizenry. In this alternate universe, though, there are no police, and control is not focused solely on bodies. Instead, a devious mayor decides that power lies in policing people's minds, but not just their thoughts or emotions. No, this crackdown focused on people's dreams, literally their unconscious thoughts. It's a surreal, fictional take on policing, but I think it's instructive because besides the actual emotional fear and the lost sense of agency that comes with arrests like Daniel's, there is a psychological effect that gets less attention, but is just as important. By arbitrarily constraining Daniel's ability to move freely, his sense of self is also altered. It's like the capacity of his individuality is drained away through psychological restraint. A sense that what you can and cannot do is limited by an arbitrary force that ultimately conspires to impose fabricated limitations, not just on your body, but your mind as well. These are the unseen consequences of, for lack of a better term, fabricated arrests, a method that does deep and lasting harm to an individual that is simply ignored. I mean, think about it. When someone is falsely detained or illegally incarcerated, does anyone recommend or advocate for counseling or for trauma therapy? Is there any law or bill or proposal from the carceral state that calls for recognition of these atrocities and the healing that only comes with truth? Well, there isn't. And I think that's purposeful. I think that any recognition of the deep psychological harm caused by illegal arrest and arbitrary detainment would claw back the ugly psychological imperative of our law enforcement industrial complex. I think even the slightest acknowledgement of how traumatic unfettered police powers can be would expose why our criminal injustice system seems at times more suited to make false arrests than solving crimes. The purpose of the psychological terror imposed by arbitrary law enforcement is to make it look matter of fact, to construe it as the normal order of things, to conjure it as commonplace. That is the underlying terror of it, that is considered normal to put someone in a cage without cause, justification, or anything other than the arbitrary preferences of a single man with a badge. That is why on this show, we will continue to report on and investigate cases like Daniel's. And that's why we will not lose sight of the fact that law enforcement, which denies our humanity, is nothing more than state-sponsored cruelty. I would like to thank Daniel Alvarez for coming forward and sharing his experience. Thank you, Daniel. And of course, I have to thank intrepid journalist Stephen Janis for his writing, research, reporting, and editing on this piece.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And I want to thank friend of the show, Noli D, for her support. Thanks, Noli D. And I want you watching to know that if you have evidence of police misconduct or brutality, please share it with us and we might be able to investigate. Please reach out to us. You can email us tips privately at par@therealnews.com and share your evidence of police misconduct. You can also message us at Police Accountability Report on Facebook or Instagram, or at Eyes on Police on Twitter. And of course, you can always message me directly at Tejas Baltimore on Twitter and Facebook. And please like, share, and comment. You know I read your YouTube comments and appreciate them, and I try to answer your questions whenever I can. My name is Taya Graham, and I'm your host of the Police Accountability Report. Please be safe out there.
It's all right.
Go ahead and roll your window down for me.
What do you need it down for?
Because I said roll the window down or you go to jail.
Why are you being like that?
Roll the window down now.
Sorry, man. I was arresting a guy for being a goddamn sucker.
After I posted this footage to YouTube almost 2 years ago, the criminal charges were dropped. The officer was fired, and a federal civil rights lawsuit was filed. Well, final update here. We just settled this lawsuit. Why did it settle? And for how much? Let's recap the footage. On January 31st, 2022, Brian Beckett was traveling home from work, driving north on West Virginia Route 19 in Mount Hope, West Virginia, It was around 5:45 p.m. He ended up getting pulled over for speeding, allegedly, by Mount Hope Police Department officer Aaron Shrewsbury. Instead of just getting a speeding ticket or even a warning, Mr. Beckett ended up being pulled out of his car and arrested for obstructing an officer, disorderly conduct, speeding, and reckless driving. Mr. Beckett was driving home from an industrial work site in a nearby county. He's not a criminal. He was just trying to drive down the road and get home. Luckily for him, he had a dash cam recording, which appears to show that he was driving safely. It doesn't indicate his speed, but this isn't about his speeding ticket. Officer Shrewsbury would subsequently swear under oath in the criminal complaint that he filed with the court authorizing Mr. Beckett's arrest that not only did he radar Mr. Beckett speeding, but that, quote, as I was catching up to the vehicle, I noticed the vehicle weaving through traffic recklessly, but that I was able to pull behind the vehicle and get it stopped. Here is the client's dash cam, which survived, thankfully, which saved his rear end here. Take a look at it yourself and see if it shows him driving recklessly. So fortunately, the dash cam paid for itself here. It showed that there was no reckless driving. But But the crazy thing that happened here was Officer Shrewsbury just immediately arrested Mr. Beckett for obstruction for not rolling his window down all the way, and he never bothered to ask Mr. Beckett for his license, registration, proof of insurance, or even his name. He just demanded that the window be rolled down all the way, not even providing a reason, just because he demanded it.
Hello, go ahead and roll your window down for me.
It's all right.
Go ahead and roll your window down for
What
me.
do you need it down for?
Because I said roll the window down or you
Why
go to jail.
Why are you being like that?
Roll the window down now.
I'm not going to.
All right, go ahead and step on the phone for me. Walk back here. Sorry, man. I was arresting the guy for being a goddamn sucker.
Then he immediately removed him from the car and arrested him. The officer never even identified himself, the reason he pulled him over, or explained any legitimate reason that he required the window to be rolled all the way down. In the subsequent criminal complaint, no allegation was made or even charged that it is illegal in West Virginia to not roll one's window down completely during a traffic stop. He was merely just charged with obstruction. West Virginia courts have held that when done in an orderly manner, merely questioning or remonstrating with an officer while he or she is performing his or her duty does not ordinarily constitute the offense of obstructing an officer. At no point did Mr. Beckett refuse to participate in that traffic stop that was being conducted by Officer Shrewsbury. He rolled down the window partially. He was clearly visible through the non-tinted glass. His hands were visible and non-threatening. He hadn't refused to provide his license, registration, or proof of insurance. He hadn't refused to identify himself or to do any act that he was required by law to perform. And I'm still aware of no West Virginia law, nor was one identified in this case, requiring motorists who are subjected to traffic stops in West Virginia to roll their windows completely down as a matter of routine. Officer Shrewsbury also charged Brian with disorderly conduct under West Virginia law. Why? Well, he said that as I walked him back to my vehicle, Mr. Beckett said this was bullshit. I then informed Mr. Beckett to stop cussing and placed him inside my vehicle. So he charged him with disorderly conduct. But under West Virginia's disorderly conduct statute, no probable cause would exist for a warrantless arrest for disorderly conduct by saying this was bullshit. First of all, if that were possible, it would be a First Amendment violation. As the West Virginia Supreme Court warned law enforcement way back in 1988, the freedom of individuals verbally to oppose or challenge police action without thereby risking arrest is one of the principal characteristics by which we distinguish a free nation from a police state. There was also a West Virginia Supreme Court case, Maston versus Wagner, which held specifically that the West Virginia disorderly conduct statute, while potentially criminalizing some profane language under some circumstances, it has to be in public in front of other third persons who complain, who are actually offended. It does not criminalize profane language used by a citizen directed towards law enforcement during their interaction with law enforcement. And then you have the U.S. Supreme Court cases, like Cone versus California, 1971, Lewis versus City of New Orleans, 1974, that free speech, however offensive or controversial to sensitive, virgin-eared police officers, is afforded a high level of First Amendment protection. After, not before, after I posted the original YouTube video, and the public saw it as usual, then the criminal charges were dismissed. Ultimately, the officer was fired, from what I understand. One other interesting thing here that I pointed out in the earlier video is that this police officer was completely uncredible to begin with because he had been previously decertified as a police officer, as I explained in the prior video. The politicians and the prosecutors behind the scenes of this particular police officer, Aaron Shrewsbury, really should explain to their public why this police officer is allowed to victimize citizens in the first place, given the fact that he had previously lost his certification to be a police officer in West Virginia while working at the Fayette County Sheriff's Office for, quote, dishonesty / willful falsification of information. No, unfortunately, I'm not making that up. That's right, this same police officer who filed false and incorrect charges against Mr. Beckett, as we've just explained, has somehow in the past managed to screw up his job as a police officer so badly that he lost his certification to be a police officer for lying as a police officer. Truly unbelievable. And how scary is that this man, Brian, was being prosecuted for multiple misdemeanors, which together, could be years in jail, technically, when theoretically, if he did anything, all right, let's just say he was speeding, but he was charged with obstructing an officer, he was charged with disorderly conduct, he was charged with reckless driving, on top of speeding, and he spent like 24 hours in jail for speeding, if he was speeding, just because one bad cop decided to show him what he can do to punish him. How often did this happen before where people did not have dash cams in their vehicle? Now, fortunately, once exposed to the public, eventually the prosecutor did the right thing, the town did the right thing, but it was only exposure to the public, exposure to you, that made that happen. And at the end of the day, the town did the right thing in settling this case. So we filed the lawsuit, and very early on in the process, they wanted to settle. They came to the table. My client came to the table, and we reached an agreement. In the civil lawsuit, all you can do is agree on an amount of money, if they will pay an amount of money. And they did agree to pay a fair amount in this case. The ultimate amount that we ended up agreeing on in this case was $62,500. Why that amount? Well, it was a search and seizure case, a false arrest case. There was no use of force. You have to compare to prior verdicts, prior settlements that involve similar facts, and there are not a whole lot of them. A lot of the value of these cases are attorney's fees. So at the end of the day, we believed it was a fair amount. And if they wanted to go forward, yeah, of course, we could potentially get a lot more. But that's what your government should do, is settle these things when they're legitimate earlier on, so that the taxpayers don't have to pay way more in the end. So that's the final update in this case. And I know some people want to hear like it was, $10 trillion settlement in these cases, but that's just not the reality. It's always a possibility, a very, very good possibility that you lose these. And not only do you get nothing, but you're out all the expenses that you had. It's always a great possibility that even if you won a jury trial, especially in West Virginia, a jury gives you like $500 or something. So when the government pays, in excess of $25,000 or so, it's likely a very legitimate case. So if you like following along with these cases, please subscribe both here and at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. And videos like this keep the government honest. Our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Qualified immunity. He got pulled over here in West Virginia for flashing his headlights at oncoming motorists in order to warn them of a notorious speed trap.
That guy flashing these lights, warning everybody you're sitting there. I'm going after him.
That wasn't a crime, so the officer basically made up a citation, and when he went to give it to my client, he laughed.
And I could take you to jail today for your unsigned registration card, but I just wrote you a citation for that. That's actually up to 6 months in jail. You think it's funny, sir?
The officer didn't like that. He pulls him out of the car. He ends up putting him in handcuffs.
Step out of the vehicle.
Are you serious?
Place your hands behind your back for me.
Are you serious?
Yes, sir. Place your hands behind your back for me.
Oh, man, you're serious, brother.
I'm not your brother.
I've seen on some of the viral videos floating around the internet all sorts of claims about what actually happened in that case. But they're all wrong. I'm litigating the lawsuit, and it's actually still pending. But there's a huge update. After we filed the lawsuit, that officer and the sheriff of that county asked the federal court to dismiss it and to give the officer qualified immunity, claiming that the driver had no right to warn others about a speed trap and also had no right to laugh at the police. And the court answered those questions. Did he get qualified immunity, or did the court deny him qualified immunity? I recently realized that I had no idea how many subscriptions I had on different devices and had no idea how much those were costing me every month. And I was actually shocked to find out how much it was, at least once I was able to finally track them all down and add them all up. How great would it be if you just had an app that would keep track of all of that for you? That's why I love this video's sponsor, Rocket Money. Rocket Money is an all-in-one finance app that helps you save more and spend less. It helps you manage subscriptions, lower bills, build a custom budget, grow your savings all in one place. But my absolute favorite part of using Rocket Money is to cancel unwanted subscriptions. It securely identifies recurring charges and allows you to cancel these with just a few taps. You never even have to get on the phone. They do it for you, and they've helped customers save over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. So if you want to save more and spend less, go now and join the over 5 million members using Rocket Money. And here's what you do. Go to rocketmoney.com/civil or click the link in the description to get started for free. You can also unlock even more features with premium. That's rocketmoney.com/civil to get started for free. Thanks again to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to it. This video is about the actions of Nicholas County, West Virginia Deputy J.D. Ellison. The county seat of Nicholas County is Summersville, West Virginia. For many years, the 4-lane highway, Route 19, that runs through or next to Summersville has been known as a notorious speed trap. In fact, in footnote 1 of the court's order that I'm going to tell you about in this video, the court took judicial notice of the fact that this incident happened at the site of a notorious speed trap. I even found some news videos going way back discussing the fact that this spot is a speed trap.
Ever get a speeding ticket you didn't think you deserved? Well, this is a story for you. It's about Summersville, West Virginia, a town that likes life in the slow lane. So much so, it's known as the speed trap of North America, handing out thousands of tickets a year.
For Canadians, there is one big bump on the road to a late winter respite in the U.S. South. And it's here, amid the rolling hills of the Appalachians, where the local law patrols its turf rigorously, assiduously, unrelentingly. Though they don't target Canadians specifically. No. They'll write speeding tickets to anyone passing through.
Hello, man. Have your operator's registration there? Okay.
Abandon hope, all ye who enter here. Here being an otherwise tranquil little community of 3,000 or so souls, nestled alongside a roadway, very popular with thousands of Canadians traveling back and forth on Florida vacations.
At least back then, they apparently were much kinder, at least when they were on camera, to the Canadians than they were to William Iannacona, who was the guy that this happened to, who originally brought me the footage. William Iannacona was driving through this notorious speed trap, this stretch of U.S. Route 19, on May 13th of 2022. And while doing so, he noticed a parked police car that was running radar to catch speeding motorists. So he decided to send a warning to the oncoming motorists that they were about to cross paths with the officer. To send that message, he began flashing his headlights at the passing cars. As the court wrote, his message got through to the oncoming motorist, but unfortunately for him, Deputy J.D. Ellison was among the recipients of that message. Ellison, a deputy of the Nicholas County Sheriff's Department, turned his vehicle around and initiated a traffic stop. In his body cam footage, Ellison can be heard talking to another officer, presumably the one that was running the speed trap, notifying him that he caught the plaintiff doing this and that he was going to pull him over.
That guy flashing these lights, warning everybody you're sitting there. I'm going after him.
And after he did, Deputy Ellison explained to Mr. Iannacona that he had pulled him over for flashing his headlights to warn other drivers of the officer running radar.
That was pretty stupid, wasn't it?
What's that?
Flashing your lights at everybody to let them know that law enforcement was sitting there running radar.
Is that what I did? Is that a crime?
Yeah.
It is? I didn't know that.
You got your license registration proof?
Yeah, I do.
Why would you do that? You're flashing your high beams at people to...
In the daytime?
Yeah.
He admitted to the other officer why he did it. He admitted to Mr. Iannacona why he did it. That's really not in dispute. The driver then explained to the deputy that he was unaware that flashing his headlights as a warning to other drivers was illegal.
I didn't know that was a crime.
It doesn't say daytime or nighttime. It just says that you can't do it, and you did it.
I didn't know that was...
Yeah, you can't high beam people at any time in the daytime or nighttime.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. I mean, nighttime I understand, but daytime I didn't know.
I'm sure I could articulate some other kind of driving charge in there for doing that too. That's pretty crappy.
Yeah, I apologize.
And he said that he believed he was engaging in protected speech by using his headlights in this way. But as the court wrote, Deputy Ellison was unmoved by plaintiff's constitutional appeal. He proceeded to write out 2 citations to the plaintiff, one for violating the Special Restrictions on Lamps statute, whatever that is, and another for an unsigned registration card.
All right, sir, there's your stuff back there. And I wrote you 2 citations today. First one being Special Restrictions on Lamps, which you can read that code, and it says no flashing lights shall be on a vehicle. And at that point in time, you had flashing lights on your vehicle. It's unauthorized.
Well, under the Constitution, it's protected in the First Amendment. But I'm going to look into it.
That's in Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm going to look into it. I'm going to see about West Virginia.
Yeah.
Free speech, you know.
Yeah, it's not illegal to do that, to flash and warn, but it's illegal to high beam, and it is legal to have flashing lights on your vehicle, not being an emergency vehicle. Huh?
I said I'll see.
Okay.
Before he gave the citations to the plaintiff, Deputy Ellison proceeded to extend the traffic stop. He began explaining to Mr. Iannacona that the maximum penalties for an unsigned registration card included 6 months in jail, and that he could arrest him instead of giving him a citation. The driver, apparently finding this suggestion absurd, began laughing. That then infuriated Ellison, who immediately retaliated by ordering him to get out of the vehicle, and then he placed him in handcuffs and led him back to the cruiser. During this exchange, where Deputy Ellison took exception to being called brother by saying, "I'm not your brother, and I'll never be your brother."
And I could take you to jail today for your unsigned registration card, but I just wrote you a citation for that. That's actually up to 6 months in jail. You think it's funny, sir?
I'll take the ticket, sir.
I know, but do you think this is funny?
I'm allowed to laugh. I can laugh all I want.
Okay, go ahead and step out here for me.
I didn't do anything.
Sir, I'm asking you to step out of the...
Am I being detained?
Yes, sir, you are. Step out of the vehicle.
Are you serious?
Place your hands behind your back for me.
Are you serious?
Yes, sir. Place your hands behind your back for me.
Oh, man, you're serious, brother.
I'm not your brother.
Believe me, you're not.
Yeah, I'll never be your brother. I'll never be your brother.
Exactly. Be careful.
I don't want to be your brother.
Be careful.
Don't jerk away from me, sir.
Just be careful.
Don't jerk away from me.
My wallet is in the car.
Okay, I don't want you to jerk away from me right there.
I was going away from the traffic.
No, I was putting you in front of my car.
Okay.
Which is away from traffic.
You're arresting me for laughing.
No.
I didn't do anything.
I'm arresting you for unsigned registration.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Okay, so stand right there. Hang tight in front of my vehicle for me. Hang tight right here in front of my vehicle for me.
The plaintiff was then forced to stay in handcuffs for several minutes along the busy Route 19 before eventually Deputy Ellison finally released him after speaking in his car with an unnamed prosecuting attorney.
I guess I'll see you in court. All right, ticket still stands there. Special restrictions on lamps, unsigned registration card. I gave you till the 23rd of this month to contact the magistrate. Phone number's on your copy there. Once you contact them, they can tell you how to take care of it.
Okay.
All righty, sir. Be safe.
He brought the original video to me. I helped him find a criminal defense attorney. I did an update video on it after he beat the criminal case on appeal, actually. Since then, I filed a federal civil rights lawsuit. That police officer asked the federal court to grant him qualified immunity, and the ruling just came out last night. By the way, this is what Deputy Ellison's boss, the elected sheriff of Nicholas County, West Virginia, this is what he had to say about the video that you just watched of what he did to Mr. Iannacona. He specifically addresses this video. So listen to what he says and then compare his words to the court's opinion.
Another topic I would like to cover is incidents regarding one of our other deputies, Deputy Ellison. There's been a live video circulating circulating regarding the traffic stop that resulted in citations being issued. During the stop, the individual began laughing at said officer because of flashing lights and trying to warn other drivers of what could have been a high priority investigation. Examples: trying to locate a missing child that's been abducted, murder suspect, someone bringing poison, drugs into our area that possibly get into our child's hands, trying to find an offender running the stoplights. We all know that's a current problem in our area. When someone acts irrational, it is not normal and raises questions for further possible involvement in criminal activity. He was detained for a short period, then released with citations of what the officer believed was a violation. To further add to the prosecutor believed a violation also occurred, resulting in a hearing where a magistrate convicted and believed one occurred also. The case was then appealed to the circuit court before Judge Callahan, where he overturned the ruling. I will say I believe the wheels of justice was served. And this, folks, is exactly why we have the best justice system in the world. Nowhere else in the world has this type of accountability and freedom. It is not perfect. However, it is very rare that it fails the citizens of this country. I also say, as individuals, none of us are perfect. There was only one. Mistakes were made daily and addressed accordingly. As to the officer involved, he has received counseling not only from myself, but my chief and his immediate supervisor. Our office has the utmost respect for our prosecutors, magistrate, and judges. They do an outstanding job for our community. 100% behind them.
That was the sheriff's opinion, but here's the opinion that matters so far, and that's from the federal courts. As applied to these specific facts as alleged that I've just recited to you, the court held this. Plaintiff contends that Deputy Ellison stated he initiated the stop because plaintiff was signaling other drivers of the presence of another officer. There does not appear to be a law in West Virginia that criminalizes such behavior. Taking the facts as the court must in the light most favorable to the plaintiff, Deputy Ellison allegedly initiated the stop without reasonable suspicion. Such a stop would violate the Fourth Amendment. The court explained that unconstitutionally extending a stop by even a de minimis amount of time violates the Fourth Amendment. So even assuming a valid traffic stop exists, police officers cannot extend that stop any amount of time, or they violate the Fourth Amendment. The court said by failing to hand over the already written citations and prolonging the encounter, Deputy Ellison arguably made the stop longer than necessary to effectuate its purpose. Regarding the fact that Ellison ordered Mr. Iannacone out of the car, the court said, while it is true that an officer may order a suspect out of the car during a valid Terry stop, such order is only valid if an officer possesses an articulable and objectively reasonable belief that the suspect is potentially dangerous. The defendants cite nothing to suggest that between initiating the traffic stop and plaintiff's laughter, that Ellison noticed anything that would suggest the encounter became dangerous to him. Without such justification, the act of ordering plaintiff out of the car is arguably unjustified. And regarding the frisk of the plaintiff, the court said, again, there is nothing to suggest at this time that Deputy Ellison became aware of an evolving threat to his safety. Thus, even assuming this was a frisk of the plaintiff, it was arguably unjustified based on the facts alleged. So I've told you many times that police officers forget that element. In order to pull somebody out of their car and frisk them, there has to be facts objectively available that the individual is armed or dangerous. And in many cases, that does not exist. Just like here. In many cases, that's used as sort of a retaliation for perceived disrespect. The defendants argued that there's no First Amendment right to flash your headlights and warn oncoming motorists about a speed trap. Here's what the court said about that. Given the fact that plaintiff contends that Deputy Ellison knew and understood the message he was attempting to send, the court finds no reason to conclude that flashing one's headlights do not constitute protected speech. Moreover, initiating a traffic stop because of protected speech and without probable cause would certainly deter a person from engaging in that protected speech in the future. Regarding qualified immunity, the court said this. Defendants assert Deputy Ellison is entitled to qualified immunity because it is debatable and thus not clearly established that flashing one's headlights to warn other motorists is protected speech. That assertion, however, misses the point. Every reasonable officer in the United States is aware that retaliation for First Amendment speech is a violation of a person's constitutional rights. Whereas here, the allegation is that a defendant knew of the speech and reacted to it accordingly, qualified immunity cannot serve as a proper shield. If just as plaintiff alleges Deputy Ellison knew of plaintiff's speech, had no probable cause to initiate the stop, and stopped plaintiff anyway because of that speech, then the actions make out a classic First Amendment retaliation claim. Thus, the court denied qualified immunity to Deputy Ellison. Also, the court said qualified immunity is not applicable to the officer's decision to order Mr. Iannacona out of the car and handcuff him, because it's clearly established that an officer may not arrest an individual either absent probable cause or with sufficiently provable retaliatory animus. In other words, police officers are supposed to know they can't arrest people just for their engaging in protected speech like flashing headlights. So there you have it. Like you heard in the sheriff's video where he tried to gaslight the public and claim that there was some legitimate public safety threat because this man flashed his headlights. He knows the real reason that Mr. Iannacona was stopped. Everyone knows the real reason. And the fact is that flashing headlights, whether the Supreme Court has recognized it yet or not, is a physical act among many, many others that are described by case law that can be protected speech. And in this case, as we've alleged, it was intended as protected speech, and it was received by the officer as protected speech, and he admitted that several times during the body cam footage. And that protected speech made him mad, so he retaliated. So this is just the motion to dismiss stage, which is based on the allegations made in the complaint. The court will address all of these issues again at the summary judgment stage, which will include the testimony of the individuals and all other evidence, including the video footage. We're still in the discovery process. That's still happening. But I anticipate the facts will show as we've alleged because it's all on video. It doesn't really matter if anyone disagrees with that. Therefore, no matter what you've seen on any viral video, this is a pending case. These things take time. Sometimes it can take years. Depositions are actually coming up in this case, and then we'll go to court again. And after we get a court order at that point, I'll hopefully give you a positive update at that time. So if you want to follow along, please subscribe both here and at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. You can also follow me on X at John Bryan ESQ. Remember, our rights don't end. Case. I'm the lawyer on that civil rights lawsuit, and just last night we got a ruling finally on whether or not that police officer gets qualified immunity. He got pulled over here in West Virginia for flashing his headlights at oncoming motorists in order to warn them of a notorious speed trap.
That guy flashing these lights, warning everybody you're sitting there. I'm going after him.
That wasn't a crime, so the officer basically made up a citation, and when he went to give it to my client, he laughed.
And I could take you to jail today for your unsigned registration card, but I just wrote you a citation for that. That's actually up to 6 months in jail. You think it's funny, sir?
The officer didn't like that. He pulls him out of the car. He ends up putting him in handcuffs.
Step out of the vehicle.
Are you serious?
Place your hands behind your back for me.
Are you serious?
Yes, sir. Place your hands behind your back for me.
Oh, man, you're serious, brother.
I'm not your brother.
I've seen on some of the viral videos floating around the internet all sorts of claims about what actually happened in that case. But they're all wrong. I'm litigating the lawsuit, and it's actually still pending. But there's a huge update. After we filed the lawsuit, that officer and the sheriff of that county asked the federal court to dismiss it and to give the officer qualified immunity, claiming that the driver had no right to warn others about a speed trap and also had no right to laugh at the police. And the court answered those questions. Regarding qualified immunity, the court said this: defendants assert that Deputy Ellison is entitled to qualified immunity because it is debatable and thus not clearly established that flashing one's headlights to warn other motorists is protected speech. That assertion, however, misses the point. Every reasonable officer in the United States is aware that retaliation for First Amendment speech is a violation of a person's constitutional rights. Whereas here, the allegation is that a defendant knew of the speech and reacted to it accordingly, qualified immunity cannot serve as a proper shield. If just as plaintiff alleges Deputy Ellison knew of plaintiff's speech, had no probable cause to initiate the stop, and stopped plaintiff anyway because of that speech, then the actions make out a classic First Amendment retaliation claim. In other words, police officers are supposed to know they can't arrest people just for their engaging in protected speech like flashing headlights. Thus, the court denied qualified immunity. The court will address all of these issues again at the summary judgment stage, which will include the testimony of the individuals and all other evidence, including the video footage. We're still in the discovery process. That's still happening. So if you want to follow along, please subscribe both here and at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. You can also follow me on X at John Bryan ESQ. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.